Thanks very much, Jenny, and thanks for holding this People's Public Inquiry, which I think has to be just one stage along the way in an enormous fight we have to put on to stop this project, because right now in Haberfield, houses are getting destroyed, and it's no good sitting in Rozelle or Glebe when the project is actually happening in St Peters and Haberfield. We've heard the direct evidence already of the destructive effect on the health of people, on our environment. We've learned that it will worsen Sydney's transport woes, including in Western Sydney, and that the financial risks will be borne by the public. So we have to ask why. And I could take an hour to try to explain, as I've investigated, why what I think the answer is to that. But I think I remember when we were campaigning last year, people kept saying to me, the fix is in. And of course they were right. The fix is in. This isn't necessarily dollars in a brown paper bag or even into an account in Hong Kong. A structural fix is in, which represents a corrupt process. Now, there's two particular companies that I want to mention to you today. One is Leighton's and one is AECOM, and their association goes back more than a decade. Leighton is the huge winner out of WestConnex. They have the biggest share in $8 billion worth of contracts so far, and also some extra work that's happening over at Arncliffe at the moment. When you hear the names John Holland, Tees and Dragados, they are all subsidiaries of Leighton's, which is now called CIMIC, which is owned by a company over which we have absolutely no control in Spain. The Northwest Link, as well as the M4 widening, the M4 East and the M5 have all gone to Leighton's. They are right now destroying Haberfield. Now, if you want to see the beginnings of this, you could go back to the 1950s, but let's just go back to 2010-11, when the private tollway industry was hitting a brick wall because they kept going bankrupt, these tollways. Let me just focus for a minute on the Clem 7 in Brisbane, which involved a consortium of the ABN, AMRO, Merchant Bank and Leighton's, which employed AECOM to do their figures. Right now, there's still a court case going on to do with this tollway. About $280 million was paid in a settlement last year. But there's a big part of that court case is still continuing, and early next week I will publish in New Matilda some of the evidence from that court case. But can I just say that AECOM's figures for the Clem 7 turned out to be wildly wrong. But not only that, their low case, which was way above what was actually happened, their low case was hidden from the private investors that signed up to buy stapled units in the what was called the River City Motorway Corporation, which was Leighton's and the Merchant Bank. These emails that are part of the evidence in that case show that AECOM were aware that the low case was being hidden from the investors, and they were being pushed every inch of the way by Leighton's, which was one of their senior executives actively hiding information from investors. Now that toll road went broke, and that we get now to about the time when the WestConnex was being suggested in the very early days of the O'Farrell government. You would think, now I just want to add one thing about Leighton's here. Recently you've heard a major Fairfax media investigation has produced very solid evidence that Leighton's and at least two of the other companies involved with WestConnex have been actively involved in paying bribes overseas. But now this isn't just recent. Those stories have been published by Fairfax in various forms since 2012 and 2013, including showing other problems with Leighton's, including insider trading. As well as that, a little story last year, O'Farrell was found to have received a pen from Tees, which is a subsidiary of Leighton's, and had no memory of that. That was published last year. We don't know how many other gifts were revealed in the audit of Tees's gifts, but that one only hit the media very briefly because it was connected to O'Farrell. We also, in this process, need to do a detailed examination of the political donations, which are really quite astonishing. You can look at it in various ways, but right here I have them. You can download Leighton's contracts and then begin to analyse them. What you see when you go into them is not just regularly back in the mid-2000s, like 2005 up to 2007-8, about 250,000 donations a year to Labor, Liberal and the National Party. But when you go into them, you see all the lunches. You see the lunches with the Labor and Liberal politicians, both. I'm not going to name anyone today, but I can tell you there's a lot of interesting ones there. Now, I want to mention a couple. So I don't think I'm going to have time to go into even quite as much as I planned, but can I just say the most astonishing thing is instead of pushing the pause button on Leighton's and ACOM, and also another company, Arup, which is also being sued for their traffic modelling, they were invited in 2012, 2013 on the ground floor to design the WestConnex, to design the very business model. So it's not just that they've done the EIS, it's not just that they've got the contracts, they've actually been pushing and designing the project. I'll just table here 2 contracts, one for Leighton's Holdings, one for their subsidiary TEAS amounting to $4 million, one to be the industry partner for the M4 East part of it, and the other to be the industry partner for the airport link, which of course was meant to be part of the rationale for the project, which it doesn't even have a design or is not even part of it properly at the moment. And just to finish up, I want to give a special mention to 2 individuals. One is a person called Michael Batchelor. Michael Batchelor was a very senior executive in ACOM until 2014. He was involved in the Clem 7. He is now left ACOM and he's in a private consultancy which has got hundreds of thousands of dollars to be what is called the government interface. Just what is the government interface between these private companies and government? I'd really like to know. He told me he's just a humble RMS consultant, no doubt. The other person I'd like to mention, and then I will sit down, is Dennis Johnson. Dennis Johnson was a traffic modeller for ACOM during the Clem 7 process. Dennis Johnson is the peer reviewer of the WestConnex traffic model, which is a commercially in confidence document. So he is the accountability factor. He is the one on which the other peer reviewers rely when they say, oh, there is a peer reviewer of the model. Now, I've tried to speak to Dennis Johnson last week, and he said to me that he had to terminate the contract right then, the conversation right then, because he's currently contracted to the New South Wales government on this project. So in 2013 alone, he got $130,000 worth of contracts. Many of the smaller contracts have never been published, and none of them have been published now because Sydney Motorway Corporation has been turned into a private company. I don't know how much other money he's been getting, but I do know he's currently contracted to the New South Wales government, so no doubt he's not working for nothing. So we need to analyse all this. It's a political economy question, it's a corruption question. This inquiry is fantastic because we are here to say this, but there needs to be a proper investigation and a halt to this process, and I would like to see an investigation that has subpoena powers so that we can actually get to the truth of where the fix actually is in.